All right, everybody. Happy First Fruits. Today is First Fruits. We're at the end of the month one spring harvest feast. Today on First Fruits, we just bring a portion to prove what is coming next. So we're looking forward to a bountiful harvest over the next several months and trusting that the Lord will provide. So this video is going to be one in a series of three, and by the end of that series you are going to have a mental math image of a complete calendar system. Essentially it will be an ephemeris. We're going to be able to make it so you can calculate celestial positions in real time without using an app, a chart, just using structure of it. So we're going to start with the foundation of that. That's the month. Specifically, why that month is 30 days long. So one, I need you guys, and I've been saying this right here time and time again, that time is structured. It's not something that we need to manipulate things in order to observe it. We just look and record. Before the math, we establish the rule. There's a text that most people know, but they don't read it carefully. It's in the book of Jubilees, so let's go on and check that out. So this, before we get into it, is preserved well. Book of Jubilees is preserved well inside of the Ethiopian tradition. It's heavily attested inside of Qumran. And in chapter 6, the warning is explicit. For I know, and from now on will inform you, not from my own mind, because this is the way the book is written before me. And the divisions of time are ordained on the heavenly tablets. There will be those who will observe the moon diligently, but it will be corrupt with respect to the seasons, and will advance from year to year by 10 days. And they will make an abominable day a festival day, and a festival day a profane day. That's Jubilees chapter 6, 34 through 37. So that's total collapse of the heavenly ordained time system, which is important for us because of the fact that it helps us to track the heavenly feasts that we are commanded to participate in for all of our generations. All right, so the problem identified precisely here is that the lunar year falls short by about 10 days. Over time, that gap compounds, and people sometimes call that a tail. I like to say that time's not something we chase, and they're running around here chasing their tails. It's something that's structured, and if we follow the structure properly, then we're not chasing randomness, and we can just observe and follow as we should. All right, so here's what the failure of the pure lunar counting kind of brings in. The Sidonic month is 29.53 days. That number never resolves. It always leaves a remainder, and the remainder compounds over time. Lunar months, about 354 days long. It's already short, year's not even done yet. That means that any system that resets the months by sighting crescents is always chasing their tail. It introduces variability where structure should exist. So you got to find a more stable unit. This is why we don't use the moon as a governor, we use it as a marker. We're essentially a ruler where we can look at a ruler and say, oh, this is the place where we currently are, where the moon is, and where we are in time, which is what we do with it. Genesis tells us directly what the moon is for and how to use it. It says that the luminaries are for signs and for appointed times. They're not to define times, not to indicate it. The distinction is simple. A clock hand tells the time. It does not set the time. I like to think of the moon hand like the minute hand on a clock, and the solar portion, which we'll get into in another video, as the hour hand on a clock. And you don't demand necessary that the two of them meet all the time, but at some point you have to use units that can reconcile one to the other, or time would be useless, and that's what we've essentially done here. All right, so let's replace that unit. This is where we pivot at. So we're trying to measure orbital motion using the Earth's rotations, and they don't divide cleanly. So we switch units. The moon moves in a circle. A circle is 360 degrees. Now the question becomes, how many degrees per day? 30 days, 360 degrees, 12 degrees per day, clean math, no remainder ever, no tail. The orbit just resolves itself. Now let's look at the geometry of it and see how it confirms itself. So if you were to look at a clock we're going to use currently, in order to demonstrate the cardinal positions on a circle, which are what the 12, the 3, the 6, and the 9 are on a clock, are the positions that we need to pay attention to in our circle for following our moon. 0 degrees, which is where the 12 degree would be at, is our conjunction. 90 degrees is going to be right at about our first quarter. 180 degrees is going to be where the 6 o'clock would be, and that's going to be half, and our last quarter will be at the 270 degree position. Now, two things I want you to watch what happens here. So if you were to go straight from top to bottom, our vertical line from 0 to 180 degrees, you got your vertical line, and then if you were to go and cross that perpendicularly from your 90 to 270, you get a cross. That's one. Two, the other thing, 0 degrees is a conjunction. Your first visible crescent will always land between 12 and 36 degrees. Your full moon is at 180 degrees, and your last quarter is at 270. These are the same phase transitions ancient observers tracked empirically before we had computers and everything. And they fell directly into this 30 set program. The geometry matches the observation every single time. So now the month starts without guesswork. So if day one's at the conjunction, then the crescent appears consistently between day 1 and 3. It doesn't matter what the weather is, where you're at, you know exactly where you are. And more importantly, for tracking your calendar, you know exactly where the moon is. And this is going to help you to know where your month is. Everything's locked, everything's synchronized. All right, now let's look at the year structure. The year has 4 cardinal boundaries: the spring equinox, the summer solstice, the fall equinox, and the winter solstice. These right here all sit at those same exact positions that we were looking at for those moon phases. At each boundary, 1 extra day is inserted. As a result, you get 8 months of 30 days, 4 months of 31 days, for a total of 364 days and 52 weeks. Or I should say, 52 weeks. There's no drift. It matches the structures as described in the Book of Jubilees, 6, 30 through 32, and all of Torah. Not just the structural hints of Torah, but the feasts described inside the Old Testament are sort of like a puzzle or formula that need a certain structure to fit in. And once you structure this here, then you'll realize that all the feasts just sort of fall into play and it makes a lot more sense. All right, so let's look at what anchors it. Month 1, day 1 is always a Sabbath. It always begins that way. That's a single constraint lock, locks the week, the month, and the year. If you know one, you can recover the rest. Once you find your way to that spring equinox, day after is going to be Sabbath. Write out the rest of the year just by counting 1 to 364, and you'll get it every single time. And then later on, we'll discuss introducing that week lock Sabbath inside of there for the continuous count. All right, what this now gives you, the payoff. You're no longer estimating, you're locating. Because now you know 30-day structure, 12 degrees per day for the moon, fixed phase positions, Sabbath alignment, 364-day year. That means on any given day, past or future, you can approximate with a very high degree of accuracy where the moon is. No tools. That is what you've heard me saying when I say I'm chronolocating. I'm using textual references and essentially this chronolocation tool in order to make sure that things in biblical text line up with astronomical layers and with secular events as well. But that's for another video when we discuss chronolocation more. All right, so today's first fruit. So today I bought you the first piece of this video, this series. I hope you enjoyed it and it really helps you guys to better see what I've been trying to explain about this month, the 30-day month. It's not tradition, it's not approximation, it's structure. I got 2 more videos to go, and when we're done, you won't be checking a calendar. You'll read one. This is the return calendar. This is the first video of this series. I hope you stay with it, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you.